Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to another edition of Crimes of the Week International. It appears that the very slow wheels of justice may have finally caught up with a very fast car this week, after a stolen Ferrari belonging to an Austrian racing legend was finally tracked down after nearly 3 decades. The whole thing started recently when London's Metropolitan Police were tipped off by the luxury Italian automaker about a potential crime after one of their vehicles was brought into the UK to be sold. The Ferrari F512M had apparently arrived from Japan in late 2023 and was in the process of being sold to a US buyer by a UK broker when it was flagged as stolen. After launching an investigation and making several phone calls that spanned several countries, the Metropolitan Police, with the help of the National Crime Agency, were able to determine that the case was even more interesting than they originally thought. Not only was this Ferrari confirmed to be stolen, the vehicle belonged to a former Austrian F1 driver named Gerhard Berger, who had been looking for it for nearly 30 years. According to reports, Berger's Ferrari was one of 2 sports cars that were stolen in April of 1995 when he was in the Italian city of Imola for the San Marino Grand Prix. It now appears that the vehicle was in Japan for all these years before recently being brought to the UK to be sold. The car is worth an estimated roughly $445,000 US, and only about 500 of them were ever made. At the time of this recording, police say that they are still investigating and have successfully seized the stolen car. However, so far no arrests have yet been made. It's unclear when Berger can finally expect to get his vehicle back. Authorities in Taiwan say that 3 people are dead this week, including the suspect, after a man carried out 2 vehicle ramming attacks, the second of which saw him deliberately crash a stolen vehicle into a police station. The incident took place at around 10 p.m. on February 29th, when the suspect, a 34-year-old man identified only by the name Jian, crashed a truck into the Badu police station in Nuannuan district. According to reports, Jian was traveling at a high rate of speed at the time, and it's believed he intentionally drove into the building. The impact from the collision was strong enough that the truck went right into the station, tragically hitting one officer in the process. That officer, a 24-year-old man by the name of Su, was pinned between the vehicle and an interior wall of the station, and sadly was pronounced dead about 30 minutes later. At least one other officer was injured as a result of the attack, though her injuries were said to be minor. After the crash, Jian reportedly fled the scene, though ended up dead a short time later when he was hit by a train about a mile away from the police station. It's unclear if this was an accident or whether the 34-year-old intended to end his life. The already tragic situation took yet another turn when it was later discovered that Jian had actually killed another police officer prior to ramming into the police station. On the way to the station, he reportedly hit a highway patrolman who was riding a motorcycle, sending him careening down a slope off the expressway. The officer, identified by the last name Liu, was rushed to the hospital, though sadly was also later pronounced dead. As for the motive behind the attack, officials say that they are still investigating, though it appears Jian may have been suffering from mental health issues at the time. According to local news reports, the 34-year-old had sought treatment for visual and auditory hallucinations, and early last month had been hospitalized and given medication. On the night of the incident, John's family claims that he started yelling and ran out of the house at around 8 p.m. dressed in nothing but underwear. It's alleged that he stole the truck used in the attack from a fishing port in a nearby district prior to committing the crime. Representatives from England's West Midlands Police say that they are investigating a truly heartbreaking case this week, after the body of a young girl was found inside her home, and her own mother was arrested for her murder. The situation began just after noon on March 4th, when officials from Brickhouse Primary School traveled to a home on Robin Close in the town of Rowley, Regis. They were there to conduct a welfare check on 10-year-old Shay Kang, who had failed to show up for class that morning. Neighbors say that they saw the school workers appearing to peek through the mail slot on the front door of the property, as well as yelling to see if anyone was home. Shortly after, police cars began showing up. When officers arrived, it wasn't long before a tragic discovery was made. Scheeßel was reportedly found dead inside the home. Her mother, 33-year-old Jasmine Kang, was seen being walked out of the address a little while later. Disturbingly, several witnesses claim she appeared to be laughing maniacally. At the time of this recording, few additional details have been released about the case. We don't know Scheeßel's cause of death, nor has any information regarding an alleged motive been announced. As a result, all we have are unconfirmed reports from witnesses and neighbors in the area, some of whose statements are contradictory. For example, some have stated that they saw Scheeßel playing outside with neighborhood children just the day before her body was found, while others said that they had not seen her for at least several weeks. Additional reports state that Scheeßel may have been in government care for some time before her death, and had only just been returned to live with her mother. What is clear, however, is the devastating impact Scheeßel's death has had on the local community. She was described as a quiet girl, but one who was happy, fun-loving, smart, and well-liked by her classmates and friends in her neighborhood. A makeshift memorial of stuffed animals, letters, and photographs have been left over the past few days outside the crime scene, with many stating that they never thought anything like this would happen in their area. At the time of this recording, Jasmine Kang remains in custody, and the situation is still developing. A former DEA agent is issuing a warning to fellow American citizens about their potential travel plans this week, after his wife of nearly 15 years was fatally caught in the crossfire of a cartel shootout in Mexico last month. One that happened right in the middle of a busy tourist area. The nightmare began for Carl Perman on the night of February 9th, when he received a chilling phone call from a friend while on business in Florida. The friend stated that a woman had been shot and killed on a resort in the Mexican city of Tulum. The victim matched the description of his wife, 44-year-old Nico Honorbach. After racing down to the area, Carl found that the morgue was already closed, so he instead traveled to the crime scene. It was here, at the Mia Beach Club, that he eerily spotted a vehicle that he and his wife owned, which had been left in the resort's parking lot. His worst fears were confirmed when he went out onto the beach where the shooting took place and found his wife's hat, as well as items belonging to their 2 dogs stuck in the sand. Following a review of surveillance footage at the resort, Carl was reportedly able to see what had happened. A group of alleged drug dealers had shown up there, and after spotting a rival cartel member at the resort's restaurant, had opened fire. The target of the attack was hit, but managed to get up and run out onto the beach. The 3 suspects chased him and continued firing, ultimately killing him and Nico, who was hit by 2 stray bullets while standing near the water. She had apparently been there to watch the sunset. According to Carl, he and his wife have 2 homes, one in Beverly Hills and one in Cancun. They used to spend most of their time in the US, though in the past few months, Nico had been staying in Mexico for increasingly long periods of time. In a tragic twist, he said that she had felt safer there than in Los Angeles because of rising crime and homelessness, and especially didn't like being there on her own when Carl traveled for business. On the day of the crime, Nico had driven 2 hours from their place in Cancun to stay at an Airbnb in Tulum with their dogs. At the time of this recording, it appears that 1 person has been arrested in connection with the crime, though they were not directly involved in the shooting. The person is said to be a taxi driver who transported the suspects to the scene. The 3 actual culprits remain on the run. Carl is now warning fellow travelers to Mexico, saying that even tourist areas are no longer safe from cartel activities. He also criticized Mexican authorities' handling of the situation and offered this advice to others, saying, quote, "The main thing was nobody was helpful at all, at any level, until I actually, kind of stood in their station demanding assistance and then making calls. The main thing is I just want people to be aware that you kind of got to use your own voice and make it heard." The U.S. State Department, which had already issued a travel advisory about Mexico, released a new warning in the wake of Nico's murder, stating in part, quote, "Criminal activity and violence may occur in any location at any time, including in popular tourist destinations. Travelers should maintain a high level of situational awareness, avoid areas where illicit activities occur, and promptly depart from potentially dangerous situations. While not directed at tourists, shootings between rival gangs have injured innocent bystanders. Authorities in the Argentine province of Buenos Aires say that they are investigating the aftermath of a deadly shooting this week, one that claimed the lives of 2 people when a man allegedly carried out a terrifying early morning attack at the home of his ex-partner. The incident began sometime early on March 6th when the suspect, Mario Carbajal, showed up at a shanty in the city of La Plata. According to reports, he was carrying a revolver and had traveled there for the express purpose of ambushing his ex-partner, Laura Gonzalez, who was living there with her daughter and her new boyfriend. Upon running inside, Carbajal apparently caught the victims by surprise, who were asleep in bed. While waving his gun around, he began arguing with Laura. Then, he started shooting. One of the first bullets struck Laura in the right thigh as she ran towards Carbajal. Sadly, the next one struck her 11-year-old daughter Alma in the head. She was killed almost instantly. After rushing Carbajal, Laura struggled with him and managed to pull the gun away from him. She then shot him in the chest, causing him to die at the scene as well. Her boyfriend, who witnessed the whole thing but was physically unharmed, called the police. Laura was taken to a hospital where she is said to be recovering. At the time of this recording, little additional information is available about the incident. The tragic crime is still under investigation, though it appears that so far all of the evidence found at the scene backs up Laura and her boyfriend's version of events. Authorities in South Australia say that a man is facing charges this week following a bizarre and poorly thought-out carjacking targeting a taxi driver. According to reports, the whole thing started at around 4 a.m. on March 3rd when the victim, an unidentified taxi driver in the city of Adelaide, picked up the suspect on King William Street in the city's central business district. The man said that he wanted to go to Hindley Street. However, things quickly went sideways. After getting inside, the suspect allegedly punched the driver in the shoulder and forced him out of the vehicle. He then drove off, leaving the driver stranded. Unfortunately for the suspect, his getaway was short-lived. The vehicle was equipped with GPS tracking, and it was quickly followed, leading police to a McDonald's in the suburb of Paraka. It was here, in the drive-through line, that the man was cornered and placed under arrest. At the time of this recording, the suspect has only been identified as a 36-year-old man, though it's said that he is now facing charges including illegal use, assault, and property damage. Authorities in Poland say that nearly 24 people were left injured this week, some critically, after a vehicle struck pedestrians at a busy transit stop, an incident which is now alleged to have been a deliberate attack. The situation unfolded sometime between 3:30 and 4 p.m. on March 1st in the city of Szczecin, close to the country's northwestern border with Germany. It was the start of rush hour, and many people were waiting near a transit stop in a busy city square when out of nowhere things took a terrifying turn. A speeding car plowed right through the area where crowds of pedestrians were standing, sending multiple victims flying and dozens of others running for cover. Despite obviously hitting many people, the driver did not slow down and instead reportedly attempted to flee the scene. He apparently made it about half a mile before crashing into 3 other vehicles. It's unclear if this is what ended the rampage, though, with local sources only mentioning that the man behind the wheel was arrested shortly after. While initial reports suggested that the situation could have been an accident, this was quickly changed when police began an investigation. Based on witness accounts and evidence at the scene, authorities now allege that the driver was in full control of his car at the time of the incident, and that he hit the victims deliberately. At least 20 people were injured during the attack, according to Polish news sources, with 4 said to have sustained serious injuries. 2 others reportedly suffered life-threatening injuries and are fighting for their lives in hospitals. At the time of this recording, many questions remain about the tragedy. While police say that they do not believe the attack was terror-related, they have not released any additional details. The only additional information we have again comes from Polish news outlets that claim the suspect may have received previous treatment for psychiatric issues. As for the suspect himself, his name has not been released at this time, with reports identifying him only as a Polish citizen who is 33 years old. He is now facing multiple charges, including attempted murder of many people, causing a road traffic accident leading to injuries, and fleeing the scene of an accident. The situation is still under investigation. Authorities in the German state of Lower Saxony say that they were investigating the aftermath of an awful tragedy this week after a soldier allegedly murdered 4 people, including a child, in what is believed to be a revenge attack against his estranged wife. The disturbing incident began in the early morning hours of March 1st, when police in the district of Rothenburg were called about 2 terrifying attacks in quick succession. The first incident took place at around 3:30 a.m. in the municipality of Scheeßel, where gunshots were heard coming from inside of a home. A short time later, terrified neighbors reported a similar situation coming from a residence in the municipality of Brockel, where witnesses also stated that they heard a man yelling and screaming in a rage. Upon investigating both locations, authorities quickly realized that they were dealing with an incredibly dangerous situation. At both scenes, 2 victims had been shot dead, among them a 3-year-old child. The 2 crimes were quickly linked when they realized that all of the victims were connected to an ongoing and alarming domestic dispute between a man and his estranged wife. After piecing together these details, they began a search for the husband, a 32-year-old highly trained member of the German armed forces, identified only by the name Florian G. The tense situation lasted for several hours, during which time dozens of state and federal police officers scoured the area for the alleged shooter. A helicopter was brought in at one point to assist with the search. It was feared that the 32-year-old might carry out more attacks, especially after his abandoned vehicle was discovered with more ammunition and a Molotov cocktail inside. The hunt finally came to an end just after dawn, after Florian reportedly turned himself in at a local military barracks. While the full details about what led to the quadruple murder have yet to be released at the time of this recording, local news reports have provided information that may shed some light on the tragedy. According to these reports, Florian initially became angry with his wife due to infidelity in their relationship. Though they still lived together, it appears that they were estranged and were no longer an actual couple. Over the past couple of months, he apparently became increasingly resentful towards his wife and her new boyfriend, identified as 30-year-old Niels O. Things reportedly escalated to the point of repeated threats, at which point Niels went to police to report what was going on. While it appears that police did speak to Florian and issued him a warning, nothing else was done, even though authorities were allegedly aware that he owned several firearms. The last time Niels went to police was just 4 days before the shootings. Niels and his 55-year-old mother were the first 2 victims killed, while the second 2 victims are said to be Florian's wife's best friend, Stephanie K., as well as Stephanie's 3-year-old daughter. A 9-year-old girl who is said to be Stephanie's other daughter was also at the scene that morning, though she was physically unharmed. At the time of this recording, Florian remains in custody on 4 counts of murder. The situation is still under investigation. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a second to give a huge shout out to everyone who has made it this far into the video. Seriously, thank you so much for watching. If you found today's upload interesting and informative, we'd be honored if you'd consider liking and subscribing, as well as hitting the notification bell and selecting all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. If you're looking for additional ways to help support the channel, we'd love to have you join us over on Patreon. Patrons get ad-free and early access to all of our content, as well as 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. You can learn more at patreon.com/crimezone, where you'll also find some of the fine folks whose names are currently on screen. All that being said, we understand that not everyone has the means to support financially, and that's totally okay. We appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, thanks so much everyone, and take care.